We also look at the kind of players involved in that market. You've got Google Wing, you've got Amazon Prime, you've got Zipline, you've got Mana. And we're talking to at least 3 of those 4 and having quite deep conversations with 3 of those 4.
James, welcome back. Thanks for hopping on.
Hi, Brandon. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I'm looking forward to jumping into this because it seems like you've been really busy lately. So, James, we've seen some products built on Hedera get significant funding recently, and Neuron is included in that. Is there anything that the broader ecosystem, Hedera, and the official entities out there could learn from the success that you've seen and potentially lean into it?
Sure, yeah. So I think really when it comes to fundraising, you have to go and get a few things in place for a business. First of all, you have to have a clear product with a clear value proposition. Like my company or this project does this for these users to achieve Y, whatever that might be. And so you need to really nail that down as to what that really is, what your value proposition is. And then really it's a case of having a really clear team, some early traction, and also kind of ideally some revenue as well. If you can have revenue at that stage, then that really puts you into the camp for seed funding. Quite a lot of people, I think, struggle with positioning and narrative because ultimately Web3 is like highly driven by narrative, and you need to understand whereabouts in this wide Web3 ecosystem your project fits in. And so we went through an accelerator last year with Outlier Ventures. For us, it was fantastic. I know people might have mixed results, but certainly for us, we had huge amounts of benefit added to the project when we went through that accelerator. And that really helped us drill down all of those vital components, which put us in a position now where we're ripe for funding. We've been speaking with a lot of people, spoken to a lot of investors, and, we've got a lot of interest in the project and very excited to see the next sort of 18 months play out now.
Well, one of the things that I read in that announcement was that you do have that revenue, and I think that's critically important. What do your customers look like right now, and how's that revenue coming?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of revenue, we've been doing a lot of projects for people who want censored or want to basically do proof of concepts. So we've doing a lot of that kind of early work. A lot of projects out there, they kind of create their token and then they worry about customers afterwards. We kind of flipped it the other way. We said, well, what is it customers want? Make sure that we actually achieve that on a small scale setting. And now we go and scale the network with confidence that we're actually doing things the right way. Our first use case in aviation, clearly, aviation is a really complex use case. You've got regulations, you've got integrations going on, and you've got safety and availability of this data. It's really critical from a safety perspective. So how are you actually going to deliver that to a customer? It's all good rolling out a huge network, but ultimately, if you get to the end and you end up with a situation which many DePins face is, oh, actually, this isn't very useful. We should have done that instead. So we want to avoid all of that. We want to make sure that people who are investing their time and energy into helping, build up sensor networks across the planet, that at the end of it, they actually have something to show for it. And that's really important for us.
Well, the last time we spoke, let's talk a little bit about that infrastructure and building out that infrastructure. The last time we spoke, you were just getting started with your beta program. How's that gone so far?
Yeah, so it's gone great. I think we've got about 70 participants at the moment in the beta program. We've kind of stopped bringing new people in because we want to focus on some other things. We need to go and get this ready for mainnet now. But ultimately, that first 70, we've got about 55 of those sensors are live now. So we've got about 80% of them have managed to get set up. The others, for some various reasons, haven't done it yet, whether it's they've been on holiday or away for a while, or they've only set up one and they need to go and travel to their brothers or sisters to go and set up the others. So there are a few still to come online, but we've got about 55 online at the moment, which is giving us coverage on about 4 or 5 continents at the moment, which is fantastic. We've got people in Australia, we've got people in Malaysia, Japan, across Europe, across North America, and even into South America now. So I think we're only missing sort of Africa, I think, and sort of some parts of Asia now. So we're really starting to build up that picture, the map of services. Obviously, we're still very, very early stage. We've still got a long way to go in terms of building up a huge sensor network. But the next step really for us in this is not us selling sensors to people. The sensors we have are from a really strong sensor company who basically have the best sensor on the market at the moment. They're already integrated. They've already got thousands of these sensors deployed. And they've basically agreed now to integrate Neuron directly into their sensors when they ship out from the manufacturing plant. So we don't have to touch the sensors anymore. And they will go on sale in the next few weeks, which basically relieves all of that stress and hassle from us having to distribute them ourselves. So that's going to be massive for us. So that allows us to start scaling the sensors massively. And they will handle all of the shipping. They'll make sure you've got all the right parts and make sure that all of the software is pre-configured. So you just need to go and register your account and connect it to Neuron when it arrives, and you're ready to go.
So these sensors, are they going out for other reasons as well and being used for other things? And then pretty much somebody can just realize, hey, I already have this sensor ready to go. I would like to also participate in Neuron and just flip it on?
Yeah, so we hope to be able to include, there's already existing jet vision sensors out there. There's thousands of these things. They're actually one of the most popular sensors out there, which existing flight tracking networks or some of the more professional flight tracking networks are already using. The key difference between this one and other sensors you'll see on the market are ultimately the other ones don't have high accuracy timing associated with them, and you basically lost all of your security by not having that. So really, this is an absolute requirement from the regulator, and this is what we found out, as I said, in that early stages of talking to customers and integrating with customers. So we've gone about choosing the right sensor. So these sensors are live on the internet, basically. That's really the vision for us, is all of these sensors are live for third parties to actually integrate into their software. We've already got a few integrations already done. We've got some more coming. And they're going to start consuming that data very soon. So we relied on a private testnet up until probably a few months ago now, but we're now flipping those integrations now over to the public testnet. So what you're seeing in the beta program is our public testnet, and we're now seeing those integrations flipping over, and then we'll start consuming that data. Then our next move is really about moving to a mainnet situation, so we don't end up with these the complications with testnet resets, where people sort of lose their accounts every sort of 6 months. So being able to move over to mainnet really allows us to, first of all, eliminate those testnet resets, and secondly, we can then start thinking and worrying about the token and how people can start getting compensated.
Yep, incentivizing. That's the whole point of Web3 in many different aspects. But of course, you're integrating Hedera in a lot of different ways, and a lot of it's about that integrity of data. But the other thing that I was really excited about that I saw was your project blueprint that you've had since the last time we spoke as well. Can you talk about that and the attention that it's gained?
Yeah, definitely. So we had this huge project. It started about 18 months ago or so. And we've spent a lot of time basically integrating with various different traffic management companies, drone manufacturers, and such like, and even airports as well. And we've basically finished sort of the first or the second stage of that now. And the second stage was really about showing that blueprint to industry. So we had people from aviation regulators, we had people from National Air Traffic Service there, we had commercial entities who would be potential customers for us, we had government officials, the whole works. It was a huge event with over 100 people, all suited and booted, and it was great to sort of have that feedback from the audience of like, this is really cool. We can see how this now becomes a reality, and with the regulators there as well. A lot of regulators, their heads down in writing regulations and doing paperwork, and for them to be able to actually see it in reality is huge for them, because they're like, okay, this makes sense. We can sort of see what the future looks like now. And now their policy is all kind of now narrowing in. How do we actually now flip the switch and go to a fully commercial market? So that work is now ongoing. We're working with a couple of partners to deliver the software assurance piece. Ultimately, software assurance is where things become highly commercial at that stage. So we're aiming to be one of the first to actually get software assurance on the data that comes out of the network. And that's really key, because ultimately what that does is it proves, first of all, your system is really robust and reliable. And secondly, shows the regulator that it's safe. Once that happens, that's the last remaining hurdle to full-scale commercialization. So we're working on that at the moment, and we hope to have that finished sort of probably mid toward or the end of next year.
So you're having these conversations with potential customers. Are there any of the teams that you're having really exciting conversations around, either within this drone and aviation use case or beyond?
Yeah, so we're because we've obviously built up this network of drone and aviation related partners who love what we're doing, love the product. They're also interested in other kinds of data sources as well. So we've looked at GNSS, RTK as one source, and the second one is weather data. These are both really important. If a drone is navigating around, it needs to know where it is very precisely. So RTK GNSS allows them to get sort of 2 centimeter accuracy on their position. The second piece is weather. Well, obviously, you don't really want to be flying when it's a hurricane. So they need to understand these things from a safety perspective. So by integrating those into the network, that will also give us other avenues to exploit those customer channels that we've already worked or already produced. So the next real stage for us is we're already talking to one of a popular GNSS network who's in the Web3 domain. You probably have heard of them. I won't name any names until it's official, but we're currently doing a proof of concept with them to integrate their sensors into the Neuron network, which could give us around about 9,000 sensors sort of overnight, which would be huge for the network. So we're really now trying to look at other projects and how do we decentralize DePin? Because ultimately, a lot of DePin is actually very centralized. You flip off the switch on the server, and it's the project goes down. There's no project left. So really, that's not what Web3 is about. Web3 is all about peer-to-peer. The Bitcoin white paper, peer-to-peer digital cash. Ultimately, that is what we're trying to do here. And we're trying to provide peer-to-peer services between different parties, whether that's a sensor and a software customer, or whether that's a retail customer and a large company. It could be either or. So democratizing service provision is really our key. And we do that with an edge-based infrastructure that allows that to happen.
So there was a pretty big story that came out of the UK around drone deliveries. Do you think deliveries is where the drone industry is really going to take off?
Yeah, it's a really, really high volume use case. So drone deliveries, you're looking at thousands of flights a day within a single city or single small town. So, when you're talking about provision of data services, then obviously that's a very attractive proposition because you've got a high volume use case right there. We also look at the kind of players involved in that market. You've got Google Wing, you've got Amazon Prime, you've got Zipline, you've got Manna. These are probably the top four, I would say, out there. And we're talking to at least three of those four and having quite deep conversations with three of those four. And they basically, Google Wing, they built the open access framework, which was in conjunction with NASA. It's called the InterUSS, USS. And they basically provide a very similar kind of architecture to how Neuron operate. So Neuron, actually, we kind of got our inspiration from this framework, which was what they have is they have this sort of network of databases, basically. So every unmanned traffic management company runs a node in this network, and it's called Cockroach DB for the tech people out there. But that network is basically being used as a little bit like a telephone directory. So these unmanned traffic management software providers can talk to each other. So they go and say, right, I've got a drone flight in this area. Is there anything in this area that I should be aware of? And they go to this address book, this decentralized address book, and they go and say, oh yeah, you need to speak to them. So they then connect peer-to-peer and then do the data exchange peer-to-peer. Well, that's exactly how Neuron operates. What we do is we instead of using Cockroach DB, which basically would have to be done on a use case by use case basis, which would be really inefficient. What we do is we use Hedera for doing this. So we use the layer one, we build all the services into that, the telephone directory, but we also provide another element which is really important, which is the validation. Ultimately, if you're doing peer-to-peer between a customer and a service provider, those people may not know each other, and we're operating in a trustless environment. So how do you bring that trust back into it? And that is where the validator nodes come in, which ultimately just enforce the service level agreement between the two parties. So if there's a dispute, they can go to the validator and say, hey, I want my money back. And if I've complied with the rules and I deserve a refund, then the validator network will go, yeah, okay, we'll sign that multi-sig, and now you can return your money to you. And that's the key missing piece. That's really our secret sauce, our USP for Neuron. What's our token all about? Our token is going to be all about this validator network to provide the trust back to a decentralized service network.
Such an exciting space. So now we got to wrap things up here. What's next for Neuron? What do you have in your roadmap for now and the next several months?
Yeah, so we're currently working on the open sourcing of all of the software. So that would be the Neuron SDK. The SDK basically turns every device into a node that can then do peer-to-peer commerce with each other. The Explorer is how you find those nodes. So that's got both a web interface for visually seeing them and also an API interface for being able to pull that data from them. Again, that would be open source, so anyone could run. If someone wants to run an Explorer, then they're welcome to, and would be really happy to help support them. And then the third piece is the smart contract. The smart contract is how you register your service. So once it's registered in the smart contract, then that's discoverable by the Explorer, and then the Explorer helps the SDK then provide all of that peer-to-peer commerce piece. So that's what's going to be open sourced. It will be documented, so other people will be able to get involved. We're currently talking about a hackathon, so we'd like to include some other developers in the ecosystem to see what they could use this for. And we've got all sorts of ideas. We're currently talking about different strands for that hackathon, which would be really exciting. And then we've got mainnet. So mainnet launch is really key for us because it allows us to sort of provide a more sustainable long-term project. The moment on testnet obviously resets every 6 months, so we don't want to just lose all of the users every 6 months. That wouldn't be a very sustainable way of doing it. So by being on mainnet, it allows us to start building and keep that growth going, but also allows us to sort of start integrating the monetary and the commercial elements of incentives, how people are going to get paid, how people are going to earn tokens and things like this, which are really important for incentivizing growth.
Well, that's what it's all about. James, thanks so much for hopping on today, telling us all about the success that you've had to this point, and good luck going forward.
Thanks so much, Brandon, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
I'm now posting these interviews of Hedera builders independently to my channel. The community, influencers, and media outlets are free to use this content to spread the word on what's being built on Hedera. Once they're all uploaded, you'll be able to go to my channel and search for whatever topic or team you're interested in to find more information. Or you'll be able to get the most recent Hedera news by watching the latest HBAR Weekly update. So check them out.